A new update for Black Ops 7 is out right now, including huge cursed mode fixes, weapon buffs, and fixes for our favorite exploits. The link for these Season 1 patch notes are in the description. Under there, I have my Black Ops 7 spreadsheet hub or information hub. If you click into that, there is a spreadsheet with all of the different blog posts that Treyarch have given us so far, including these patch notes, which automatically update whenever they release a patch. Now, there's not a ton of stuff in here, but I think what's in here is very important. First of all, globally, they said that they are tuning weapons. And this is important because sometimes they will specifically change things for zombies or for multiplayer or for Warzone. But when they say global, this usually affects zombies too. So this is worth reading and understanding. And I'll be honest, for zombies, we're really just looking for rate of fire increases or damage increases. At least for me, I don't care much for range or recoil. Luckily for the Maddox, they just buffed the range. Specifically on the Echo Fire barrel, they increased its range. They reduced the view kick, and they snuck this one in here. The Echo Fire barrel will now increase the headshot multiplier by 30%. That is big, especially for my DPS spreadsheet, which is also linked in the description. It seems as though they changed the prestige attachment on the MXR. The kick will be increased, but the view now climbs and resets more smoothly. So maybe that might feel a little bit better to use now. This is a big one on the X9 Maverick. This is like the worst assault rifle in the game. The burst fire delay increased from 120 to 150. Don't freak out yet, because that is going to be remedied later down in these patch notes. But this is a great example of how something in multiplayer can be really good. And they're saying, hey, we want to increase that burst fire delay because this was doing too much work in multiplayer, but they're going to fix it in zombies. And I think that's a great example to show you here. The DS20 Mirage, that's not the picture of the Mirage, but you get the idea. They made the launcher adjustments, increase some of the damage and the radius and the projectile speed. I wonder if that transfers over to zombies, something fun to test. For SMGs, they improved the hipfire spread for a certain attachment. They made akimbo even better, but at the cost of increased recoil. They changed some stocks, and overpressure now improves damage range. So that might actually be good, especially for the boss fight in Astra Malorum. That hipfire could be even better now. For the Raiden, this is a bunch of recoil control, aim walking movement speed, which I like, but it's not that big. This improves damage range, whatever. Same thing here, recoil control, aim walking, damage range. Same goes for this one with the Razor, that's okay. Dravik 45, we just recently tested this one out in a future video. Luckily, nothing too crazy with those attachments. Again, ADS and damage range, whatever. Same goes for this, and same goes for the MPC. For shotguns, they're making some adjustments to Dragon's Breath. Each application of Dragon's Breath will do less damage for a shorter amount of time, amounting to the same DPS, but for a shorter duration. In the case of the M10 Breacher and the Echo 12, more damage is being shifted into the new base damage value at all ranges. The result is that Dragon's Breath should feel more consistent at range, even when hitting fewer pellets, and will rely less on the damage over time for its damage. So that's like a buff in my eyes, especially for zombies. Killing something faster is always better in zombies. Close range power will be lower, however, which makes the default ammo a better choice for these engagements. Okay, so range for Dragon's Breath and close range for regular pellets. Okay, that kind of makes sense, at least in terms of multiplayer. And here you could see they have increased the base damage of the Dragon's Breath. Again, very curious if this is gonna carry on over to zombies. Again, Dragon's Breath increase in that base damage could be really big, They are nerfing the range of the Akita. However, in zombies, again, I don't know if that's going to be super big. With the Dragon's Breath, they are reducing the that's going to be big in zombies. They're reducing the base damage in Dragon's Breath. Again, if it actually carries over to zombies, but they are increasing that base damage at that extended range. With LMGs, they had some ADS penalty removed with a certain stock. Marksman rifles, it looks like more recoil control and ADS. An interesting one here, we have the Warden 308, fire rate reduced from 600 to 480. That's crazy. But again, this is a great example. In the zombie specific portion, they make up for it. So again, don't freak out too much. For the Nova line, they slightly increased the view kick and the flinch. For the semi-auto select fire, they reduced the rate of fire from 324 to 240, but they reduced the vertical and horizontal recoil by 25%. Don't know how much of that relates to zombies because it gets full auto anyway, so I'm not too worried. It seems as though they're buffing the VS Recon for its maximum, medium, and minimum damage ranges. All of that damage could be really good in zombies now, we'll see. But they have reduced the multipliers for its upper arm and lower arm a little bit, kind of making you be a little bit more precise on the headshots. Again, could be cool in zombies. The Shadow SK also got an increase in damage. Again, we'll see if that transfers over. They are decreasing the rate of fire, but again, don't worry, they're fixing it. It looks like they are buffing the XR3 overall, specifically with the quick charge attachment, which I think might be the prestige attachment. achievement. They've increased it from 15 to 30%. The cooldown has been reduced, but there might be more recoil. Again, we'll see. They're making the Arc M1 immune to trophy systems, which is pretty cool. And they're increasing the speed of the shot. I don't think that's going to do much in zombies, but that could be okay. For the ballistic knife, they removed the pre-fire delay, increased the projectile speed, and they reduced the vertical arc. Now, hopefully they just make it work with melee macchiato. That would be great. So that was the general changes. Now they go to multiplayer, but then if we go down, we get to the zombie stuff. For Astra Malorum, they adjusted the telescope to be used 3 times per round, and they increased the telescope duration from 15 seconds to 30 seconds. I think you could use the telescope as many times as you wanted to before, so now they're limiting you to 3, which makes sense, but they're increasing that duration from 15 to 30 seconds, which makes a lot of sense. Sometimes you would get lost, you couldn't find Mars or the sun in there, so having 3 times to do that, that's not going to be an issue whatsoever. Addressed an issue where multiple main quest machines failed to enter a cooldown after being exited multiple times without entering any codes. I don't know exactly what that means. That could be the number code to start the main quest, that could be the number code to go to Mars, but hopefully that means nobody gets soft locked after failing a certain amount of times. Addressed an issue where the final encounter could be initiated again after loading a saved game where it was already completed. This makes me kind of sad because I always really like practicing, especially these really tough bosses, by saving and quitting. Now, this might still be possible if you just don't completely kill the final boss, and if you're still mid-boss fight, you still will probably be able to save and quit. So if you're having trouble actually beating it, you should still be able to save and quit from what it sounds like. But what this might do is this might prevent sort of the save scumming that we were doing during the event, where you would just beat a boss, save and quit, beat the boss again, save and quit, and get tons and tons of those points over and over again in that leaderboard event, which is a shame that they fixed this and something else after the leaderboard event was done. I hope they'll learn from that mistake, because boy, that was not fun to do. Again, I hope it's still there to practice the boss fight. I love doing that, especially when a map first comes out. I really like that. So I want that functionality to be there, but hey, I think it's fair once you actually strike the final blow, maybe it shouldn't allow you to save and quit. I think that's a fair compromise. Addressed an issue when rotating Mars or Saturn in the Machina Australis, where they could visually rotate around the wrong axis. I saw Lego's video on this. This is really funny. Addressed a rare issue during the final encounter where the boss could fall under the map during a phase transition. That's so terrible to have happen to you. Addressed a part where the RCXD couldn't be reached by zombies. That sounds like a huge exploit. Closed an exploit where jumping off the map would reset field upgrade cooldowns. Man, I wish I would have known about that before. Wow. Cursed mode. Addressed an issue where gaining points too quickly could result in a crash. Hallelujah, ding dong, the Wicked Witch is dead. Use those dual wield Akitas as much as you want, at least in theory. This was one of the biggest issues with Cursed. If you were point farming too quickly, you would crash. So I really hope that's actually been fixed. Addressed an issue where relics wouldn't spawn properly on specific rounds in Astra Malorum when loading a cursed mode save game. Now, this is pretty broad. I would like some clarification. I know relics are kind of hush-hush, and I like that. And this might be just the best way to phrase it, because I don't know exactly what this is fixing. But if this fixes the issue that I talked about in today's or yesterday's video, where if you load into a saved game and then the relics just don't spawn, or the relic challenges themselves or the Easter eggs you have to do just don't spawn, then I think this could be huge. This could mean that we might be able to save and quit and complete relics later on. That would be so big. And who knows? I know a lot of people were saving and quitting before round 40 and before round 60 just to test out the relics that were there. I wonder if some of the other relics that we haven't discovered yet were actually glitching out and we weren't able to find them at all because we saved and quit. So I wonder if we're going to see some increase in relic finding today and tomorrow. But all of that's dependent on what exactly they mean by this. This could only apply to one relic on Astra Malorum that we don't even know about yet. Who knows? But let's talk about weapons, because the X9 Maverick actually got a buff. Remember, it was nerfed that burst fire delay was increased in multiplayer, but now when you pack-a-punch it, it will reduce that burst fire delay by half, which is essentially doubling your DPS. Well, it might not be doubling your DPS. It's improving your DPS very significantly. So I'm excited to retest that. I will update the DPS spreadsheet when I get to it, link in the description. But the Warden 308, which was already pretty good, it got an improved sprint to fire time after pack-a-punched. They removed the pre-fire delay when pack-a-punched, and they improved the ADS speed when pack-a-punched. Dude, that Warden is going to be very competitive now. That's going to feel really good. The Shadow SK got an improved rate of fire when pack-a-punched to offset that multiplayer change. Remember, the Shadow SK got a rate of fire nerf? Well, it seems they're using Pack-a-Punch to offset those multiplayer changes, which I think is phenomenal. The Jaeger 45 has a known issue. It currently fires slower than expected when Pack-a-Punched. This is unintended and scheduled to be addressed in an upcoming update. Thank goodness it felt incredibly terrible to use. And I thought it might have been even worse than the beta, so I'm glad to hear this. Mule Kick closed an exploit where equipment would be fully stocked when thrown out of bounds when using the buy one get one minor augment. The Casimir exploit is gone. We're gonna need a different way of getting to those high rounds now, but that is really encouraging to see. Again, really wish you would have done this first and then done the leaderboard event, but I'm not gonna complain. For quick revive, I feel like this has been in the patch notes literally every time, addressed an issue where the equivalent exchange major augment would sometimes not function correctly. At this point, I don't even know how equivalent exchange is supposed to work. At some point in time, they said it would be kill based. At another point in time, they said it would be damage based. They've fixed it a couple different times, but I don't know exactly what this means because they didn't specify any specifics here. Again, would love some clarification there. I know patch notes are hard communicating with everybody, but at this point in time, I don't even know how quick revive is supposed to work. And then we have some challenge changes here. Addressed an issue that prevented the Prestige 9 calling card Perfectionist from tracking if the player had taken damage in the first 10 rounds. That's a terrible bug. Addressed an issue where the finale was not correctly referencing the requirement of using the Starburst major augment for the fireworks ammo mod. I've seen a couple of that. Fixed an issue where the critical priority is not awarded at the start of round 15. Addressed an issue where the Astra Malorum calling card challenge was not specifying total rounds survived. Okay, that's cool. Addressed an issue that could prevent the calling card challenge weapons galore from tracking correctly. So hey, all of those calling card challenges are hopefully going to be fixed. Really quick here, I want to cover Endgame just a little bit. They really just tweaked the weapons here, all the same ones. They're using the damage upgrade, which is basically just the Pack-a-Punch effect in Endgame, to mitigate a whole bunch of the nerfs that they got in multiplayer. So if you're worried about Endgame and these weapons, don't worry, this damage upgrade is essentially the same thing as being Pack-a-Punched. In terms of what they still need to fix in zombies, I posted on Twitter asking you guys to tell me every augment that you find broken in Black Ops 7 so far. I will be doing an augment video relatively soon, going over some underrated ones now that I've unlocked a couple more. And in that video, I will be going over some bugged ones, the things that come off the top of my head right now. Mule Kick stock ammo one, it doesn't work for all weapons or some weapons. Healing Aura has a couple ones, like Necromancer I think just doesn't work. The new Energy Mine one, the Smart Mine, just doesn't work sometimes either. I know Shatter Blast, the one that has multiple detonations, doesn't work, which is like the only good one that you should run. And I think there's a couple other, but that's all I can think of off the top of my head. So if anybody at Treyarch is watching, there you go, there's a short list. I know we want to see a buff to the LGM1 Wonder Weapon. Maybe some people want some boss fight adjustments, I don't know. You guys all said it was okay, so I'm not going to say anything about it anymore. But I know there are still quite a few weird little bugs here and there, so let me know in the comment section below, what bugs are you encountering and how do you replicate that? But all that aside, if you are curious about the cursed mode, I really love the cursed mode and what it does, and with these fixes, I'm really excited to keep testing these relics. And if you want to see salty donuts, try to obtain one of the relics from Astra Malorum. I think it's a really important one for you to get because I really like what it does. Be sure to check out this video and stay beautiful.